everybody. It is Gary Vaynerchuk, and this is Die Hard Dialogue, where we pick a couple of games each week, and we let the diehards battle it out. One of those games is always the New York Jets game, because I am the ultimate New York Jets diehard. I'm always accompanied by the great Jess, who is a slight bandwagon Patriots fan, but she's starting to own it, which makes me, this is what I do. Now I'm going counter. Now I will call her a diehard Patriots fan. It's great to see her. She's always wearing a winter hat these days, which excites me. Jessie, how are you?
I'm good. It actually is cold enough for me to be wearing this hat here in Boston right now. So last time I wore it, I committed to it, but it was too warm to be wearing it. But now it's fine.
Now, Jess, before we go into the Giants-Raiders game with two wonderful guests, and we'll get to them in a minute, I do think it's important that we acknowledge that we're filming this 2 hours before the Thursday night game, Jets-Colts, where all eyes on Mike fucking White, who did things that nobody understands last week. And if he does those same things tonight, we're in full insanity mode here in New York. What were your takes on the stunning outcome? I was very off again last week, Jets-Bengals. I'm gonna end up like missing every Jets game this year. Do you have any thoughts on what we saw?
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely banana land. Like, I mean, Mike White is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame after one game. Like, his jersey's in there. That's wild. Yeah, I mean, I remember literally asking a question on our show that day, being like, nobody expects the Jets like to beat the Bengals, and everyone was like, ha ha. And then the Jets went out there and absolutely went crazy. So my question is, I know you weren't at that game because you said you were doing dad duty, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So how superstitious are you? Or are you just a little stitious because you were at the game?
If Mike White wins tonight, obviously, I'm very excited about Zach, but he had his trials and tribulations like any young kid will. You've got to ride the hot hand. I'm a big fan of the hot hand, and Mike was a 5th round pick, so, and Zach got hurt against the Patriots, which is the reverse of what happened with Drew Bledsoe, getting hurt at the Jets. And the reality is, the fact that the Jets get a game like this tonight with juice excites me to no end. And I don't know if you know this, every photo I take, I put up the number 5, where I'm very, very attached to the number 5. He wears number 5. So I'm in all sorts of feelings land.
So, I mean, Jets are 10-point underdogs.
They're covering.
You think they're covering?
Uh-huh. I think they're going to win tonight.
You think they're going to win?
I do.
Why? You think Mike White's going to go off again?
I think Mike White's going to play good. And I think the Jets are going to do solid against the run, which is the engine of that team, because we have a good defensive line. They're totally different defense with CJ Mosley. And I do think the Colts are going to try to take away the short stuff, because that's where Mike destroyed the Bengals. But I don't think fans understand how skilled the Jets positions are. Like, when you have this Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, Jamison Crowder, this dinky dunky stuff that the Pats have done for 20 years, you're accustomed to this.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a weird feeling.
So give us a score prediction. Maybe we can clip it and get it out tonight, Gary.
I think the Jets are going to win 24-23 on a late drive with 39 seconds by Mike fucking White.
Man, I love that prediction from you.
Let's move on. What do we got?
All right, let's bring in our guest for this week's game. You already said it, Raiders at Giants. We've got Dan Duggan here, Giants beat reporter for The Athletic. And we got a huge Raiders fan, Justin Novello here. Welcome in, guys.
Justin Novello is my sister's husband.
Yeah,
Dan,
I did know that.
Dan, I brought in my brother-in-law, who's a Raiders fan, and I'd like you to trounce him with your desperately deep Giants knowledge. My only problem is I'm really caught here because I'd love to see you razz them, but I hate the Giants so much because I'm younger brother, Jets land guy, that. And a lot of issues going on in Giant land from my perspective. So I'm excited to get your take. Jessie, set us up. Give us some spreads and props and drops and all that stuff.
Yeah, so Raiders 3.5-point road favorites over the Giants, right? Total sitting at 46. Raiders minus 170 on the money line. Giants plus 150. I mean, Dan, I want to start with a question for you. How long will Joe Judge be in New York, especially after Headset Gate?
Yeah, Headset Gate could turn out to be his Waterloo. That was not a good avenue to go down. And it's funny because he was really just answering a question honestly. Everyone's like, what was up with burning the timeouts? He gives an answer, but he just went a little too far with it. It felt like an excuse. He kind of tried to put the toothpaste back in the tube the next day, but just not a good look to, again, come off like you're making excuses about something that, it's happened every week. It's like, well, you should have figured it out, potentially by week 8. But I mean, listen, coming into this season, I thought there was zero chance we'd be talking in week 9 about Joe Judge being on the hot seat. He built up a lot of goodwill, about as much goodwill as you can possibly build up in a 6-win first season. And it's really gone out the window fast here. I mean, I have a really hard time believing he won't be back for a 3rd year. They just don't want to keep firing coaches every 2 years. But I mean, if the bottom falls out or if the locker room turns on him, which, there's no signs that that'll be the case, that things can definitely change. I would definitely think they're going to sort of, they have a soft end of the schedule. They'll kind of right the ship, at least cosmetically. If you win 6 games again, you can maybe sell. I will bring it back for a 3rd year. But at some point, you got to see some results. So it's getting late early for Joe Judge.
Justin, before these guys hopped on, Justin and I were talking, and I was like, how are you? That's how it came up that Gary calls me a bandwagon Pats fan, because I was saying, oh, you're a Raiders fan, but you're in New Jersey. Tell me how that happened.
Yeah, I turned on the TV one night to watch some football. I was in 8th grade, and it just happened to be the Seattle Raiders game where Bo ran that 80-yard run after like the one stiff. I'm like, that's it. Like, got to watch that for a couple of years, and watching Jay Schrader with his shots that were crazy that Tim Brown was catching it was awesome. It's exciting.
That was it.
You know what's really devastating for me is Justin came into my life, started dating my sister in college, just as the Jets were making some of their Herm Edwards year runs and Chad Pennington year runs. And so in the first several years of our relationship, the Jets lost 2 playoff games to the Raiders. I still can't get over the fact that Victor Green was held so obviously on the run that ended their first game that they lost. And then the second was even worse. I went to that game. Jets were tied 10-10 with Chad Pennington.
I don't think I've ever seen you more upset that first game, at a game.
That was oh, you're talking about something completely different. You're talking about when I first met you, and here we go for Jess. You're talking about Victor Green on a different thing. I'm talking about Victor Green on a Saturday night playoff game against the Raiders being held, them not calling it. You guys, Garrison Hurst iced the game or something of that nature, or somebody else, or what's his name, different running back. But you're talking about when we first met, and you guys came down and you went to a Jets-Patriots game the year that Victor Green became a Patriot, and the Patriots beat the Jets like 45-7, including a washed-up Victor Green picking Vinny off for an 80-yard touchdown, something he never did for us. Yeah, that was very bad. All right, back to Giants, Raiders. Give us some data. Dan, give us some data, Dan. Like, what are you going to see? What are we going to see in this game from your perspective?
Well, that's a good question. It's hard to say right now because there's so many guys that are either injured or on the COVID list. I mean, Saquon Barkley was sort of iffy this week anyways with an ankle injury that's caused him to miss the last 3 games. But now he's also on the COVID list, and there's been a ton of false positives over there. I actually was one of them. We get tested every Wednesday as the media, and I had a nice fun 24 hours where I'm wondering if I had it, and turns out I'm in the clear. But so presumably that could happen for Saquon. But now the problem is he's missed 2 days of practice and treatment, which potentially would get you obviously closer to playing. So I think it's a long shot that he plays. The wide receivers are banged up. Sterling Shepard is most likely going to be out again. He's been in and out of the lineup all year. Kenny Golladay is trying to come back from a knee injury that sidelined him for 3 weeks, but I don't think we know for sure that he'll be back. Kadarius Toney's dealing with a thumb injury. I mean, it's like you just go down the list of relevant playmakers, and they all have something. They've all been in on the lineup pretty much all year. It's sort of been the story of their season. They just cannot get their full arsenal on the field really for any duration of time, and this week is no different. So yeah, I mean, as far as projecting who might have the best game, Toney's kind of my default answer because he is so explosive, and he's had a few of those games where you see just the dynamic playmaking ability. And he has a thumb injury. I think he'll be fine. So I guess that's the safest pick because so many of these other guys are banged up.
Listen, why have the Raiders? I mean, what a wild situation. Obviously, the controversy. Like they've rallied around this coach. Anything stand out for you?
Regarding the coach.
Regarding why they've rallied around this coach. What are we seeing? What are we feeling?
I mean, I think that's all has to do with like the leadership of the team. And I think he really knows what he's doing. I think this guy has been assistant coach for like 5 or 6 organizations, assistant head coach, excuse me. So I think he really knows what he's doing. And I think he's already earned the players' trust. And I think it showed, especially after his first real game when like the star player was out,
Josh?
When Waller wasn't playing, Josh Jacobs, absolutely. But I think he's been intermittent anyway.
Yeah.
But I think like Foster Moreau coming in and like using him to the best of his abilities, like it's awesome. It was just, that just showed that he was able to adjust.
You mentioned leadership, right? Like Derek Carr has really like stepped up, not just like with the team, but also kind of like with the media. He's like, people are rallying around him. His passing yards is set at 275.5, right? So he's sort of like, that's his passing prop. This dude stepped up as a leader. Do we see him going over that maybe, Justin? Stepping up as the man in charge here?
And Dan, can you add some context to what's going on with the Giants secondary this year?
Yeah. You want Justin to go first? Or want me to take that?
Go ahead, Dan. We'll let Justin
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, well, the Giants have, coming into the year, they were really high in their secondary. You had James Bradbury, who was a Pro Bowler last year. They went out and spent a lot of money on Adoree Jackson to complement him on the other side. And they had a pretty good safety grouping with Logan Ryan, Xavier McKinney, who was a second-year guy they're really excited about, and Jabril Peppers. And that group just didn't kind of pick up where either they left off or, again, you brought in Jackson, you thought that'd be an upgrade. And they just kind of couldn't find their footing early in the year. Now, Peppers is out for the season with a torn ACL. McKinney's another guy who's on the COVID reserve list, but again, presumably that could be a false positive. So let's just say he's probably back. The secondary should be a strength of this team. It has been in the last 2 weeks because they went into Kansas City, and obviously the Chiefs are scuffling a little bit, but they made them work for everything, and they held them to 20 points. So defensively, that was a really strong performance. Tyreek Hill had 18 targets and only ended up with like 94 yards. So obviously they fed him, but they couldn't get anything going deep. They really shut down Kelsey, and even on one of his 4 catches, Logan Ryan forced a fumble. So they're kind of starting to find their groove because they really carried the team last year. Again, it sounds funny to say carry for a 6-win team, but
Right.
The offense was so bad that if the defense didn't play at the level they did, they would have been a 2-win team. So I think that Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, is a guy who is really highly regarded, and for whatever reason, it just took some time for him to start pressing the right buttons again this year. They certainly didn't pick up where he left off. But now it does feel familiar. That Chiefs game sort of felt like when they went out to Seattle last year and really flummoxed Russell Wilson. Again, the Chiefs have had some struggles, but it definitely was more of the same on Monday night because they really made it work for everything. But obviously still came up short.
Justin, binary question. Will Derek Carr have more yards than 275?
Then what is it, 275? I think he will. Yeah.
Dan?
I think
He's
he will. I
gone
think
over 275.5 passing yards in 5 of 7 games this year.
Dan?
Yeah, and I'm looking at that game. He's been well over in a lot of these games. But I'm gonna go under because I just think that that's the one thing that I'm seeing from Graham is he takes away what another team does really well. So again, like they took Kelsey out of the game, they limited Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying they're gonna shut Carr down, but I'd be very surprised if he lights them up for 400 yards. Now maybe Josh Jacobs goes off on the ground or whatever it is. I just think they're very good at trying to neutralize your best weapon. Not always successful if you watch the Rams game. But I feel like they're starting to hit their stride a little bit. I think that he has, probably a good day, but not one of these crazy 400-yard days.
Dan, is Daniel Jones the Giants quarterback in 30 months?
Man, I don't know if he's gonna be in 9 months. No, I don't know. It's been the biggest question. He's probably been here for about 30 months. You'd like to know that answer right now, and here we are midway through year 3. I don't know how anyone could have any sort of conviction that he's definitely the guy. Because I mean, you look at it, they're going to have to give him his 50-year option this offseason, which off the top of my head, I think it's in the low 20 millions for the 2023 season. I don't know how they could probably not exercise that. But then again, like, are you sure that he's the guy that you want to invest in?
Does it feel the Giants are in the same place that my Jets were with Sam Darnold?
It does to an extent. I mean, I think the writing was a little clearer on the wall last year for him. I think Jones has had moments, like, and they love him. I mean,
well, the writing was more on the wall. I'm sorry to interrupt, because you had Trevor Lawrence coming out, a can't miss prospect, and the Jets hadn't won a game yet at this point.
Right. And like, that's the thing. If the Giants, I mean, they have the Bears pick too, but if they don't, there isn't that Trevor Lawrence prospect, and if they finish with the second pick, that means Daniel Jones probably had a terrible second half of the season. So then maybe that changes things. But there's no quarterback in this draft that's of that caliber. Right. So I'm thinking if they finish with the 6th pick, I don't think that they're going to like mortgage the future to move up or something. So I think they're probably going to stick with him because, as I was saying, like, the organization.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're so knowledgeable. I'm getting excited. This is how I interview. Dan, why aren't more teams taking the Dallas approach? And like, the Giants should let it ride and franchise Daniel if he rocks it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is probably the best avenue to take. It just does get dicey. I mean, even with Dallas, it got a little dicey there. It's worked out, but they ended up paying probably a little more because it gave Dak some leverage by putting themselves with really no other options there.
You also have to look at agents and quarterback demeanor, right? Like, and by the way, it got dicey with Dak on the goddamn 3rd franchise tag.
Yeah, true.
Right. So like, and Cousins on the 3rd.
Yeah.
The 3rd franchise. I mean, you're talking, so like, it does feel like last year with the Jets situation, I was like, man, just like no conversation to the franchise jet, let him play. And if it explodes and worked out, you got the teams have a lot more control.
They do. I think it's just a dicey like dance where, like, if you start kind of not making the full commitment, then you start having all these questions like, is he your guy? Is he not your guy? Like, listen, I think
you're going to ask that question next Thursday.
Yeah, no, I think you should be able to live with that, but I don't think franchises always love to live like that. The message it sends, they're very concerned about that type of thing. And I mean, again, with him, he's under contract next year. And then I'm saying you pick up the 50-year option, which would be, I guess, like 22 million, let's just say. That's not crazy money for a quality starting quarterback, but it just that the question becomes, a lot of these guys are getting the huge extension after year 3. I can't see any way you could feel like, yes, let's give Daniel $160 million by what you've seen to this point.
No way. Justin, what's the score of the game going to be?
I'm going to say it's going to be 35-33. It's going to be high scoring.
Wow.
I think because of the defensive back situations on both sides, I think
35-33 who?
Raiders.
Oh, I see.
Going way over that 46-point total.
Yeah, Justin is celebrating with a pina colada at halftime because it's already over.
Listen,
over.
Wait, well, the Raiders score almost 30 points every game. They win. So
I get it.
That far.
Dan?
I actually just, my very intensive process to come up with my prediction for the Athletic, I went 24-19 Raiders. I think the Giants will have some, a lot of field goals, they'll kind of muddy up the game, make it ugly. And like I said, I mean, my vibe is that they're going to do enough to sort of limit Carr and don't let the passing attack just go crazy. I mean, obviously it's a crazy situation, but Ruggs, that's a big absence in terms of just a big play threat that they don't have now. So I think that'll have an impact too. And yes, I think the Raiders will win, but I think it would be a little bit under. So we're definitely, me and Justin are on different ends of the spectrum there for what we're expecting to see.
Listen, everybody thought that Waller being out would have been a bigger impact than that. And this guy that, Ruggs is a smaller piece.
Ruggs has been emerging, and I also think there's several things going on in this conversation. Ruggs has been emerging. I also think that Dan is potentially getting lulled to sleep on the defense with how they played against the Chiefs, who've been struggling with this whole year, but I understand why he's doing that because I get tricked on that stuff too. It's like they're the Chiefs, right? And so like, like you could get caught there. And the Raiders have really shown up offensively. And I do think things are getting a little weird in Giant Land. Now, this is me projecting. This is my preference. That would be the case. But I actually am a little bit closer to Dan Land on this one. I think it's going to be 19-10 Raiders.
Okay, so neither team to score 25 is plus 180 on the DK Sportsbook.
I like that. I to me, that might be what we have to boost.
So we think it's going low scoring here.
I do. What's the weather? I mean, it's starting to get a little colder. Let's not forget the West Coast to East Coast thing. Like the Raiders are still the Raiders, like on the East Coast. Like the Jets have won a lot of games over the last 3 decades against the Raiders that they shouldn't have because of that lag. It's tough to go from the West to the East for a lot of these teams. I do think the Giants could get a little boost from. It was a really good. I actually thought the Giants were going to beat the Chiefs, by the way, last week. That's how down on the Chiefs. Like I'm on the theory that the NFL is so amazing. It's my favorite. Like these teams watch so much goddamn film that like Ed Reed and I once had a drink, and he told me that he figured out through film that Terrell Owens would do something with his hand strap if they were throwing that was different than he would do it if they were running. Think about what I just said. and that a lot of the Ravens' success against Terrell Owens' offenses was because Ed Reed was that guy. And I think about that a lot, the stuff that we don't hear a lot about or is occasionally talked about, but not the common sense thing we think about. And there's like a piece of me that thinks there's a couple things going on with the NFL that they've figured out against the Chiefs offense. And it's hard to stay up when you're the Chiefs. When you go to 3 straight AFC championship games and 2 Super Bowls, it's kind of hard to get fired up for week 4, week 3. There's a lot of guys there that have been there through this whole run. And I think, sometimes you get lulled into it, and then you kind of lose momentum and kind of, start forcing. It's got a real narrative that we've seen in sports, at least I've seen over the last 30 years of watching all the sports. You just see this happen sometimes with teams. And, but so that's how much I thought that they're a little bit in trouble and the league's figuring out that I thought the Giants were going to win last week. And in that same vein, that might catch Giant fans this week where you think like, oh, our defense is starting to put it together. I still think that defense is vulnerable. And I do think that something's going on with Derek Carr. You brought up a very interesting point about the way he's treating the media. Sometimes how old is Derek now?
Let's find out.
Why don't you Google it? But here's where I'm about to go. Dan, how old are you?
37.
He's only 30.
So Dan, this is going to work for you really well. Justin, for you as well. Jess is 20, so she doesn't know this yet. But
now I'm 31.
I know. I was trying to be nice. It was a nice little thing.
Thank you. Actually, I really appreciate that. I'm 25. Okay.
You know what was awesome? You actually thought I was being serious, which was like subconsciously egotistical.
I mean, I'm very vain, Gary. So I am.
You just thought that I thought you were 20.
Yeah. And I was like, obviously, because I look 20.
Yeah. Justin, he just turned 30. And I think this will work for both of you because you guys are not too removed. Justin's a little older, but like, you start growing up. You're different at 30 than you are at 22 and 25. And sometimes that bleeds into your profession. And I have taken note of some of the way he's been carrying himself, and it's actually landed with me. And that's where I spend my life and that kind of stuff. So there is a part of me that's like, this might be a little bit of a click. And, maybe he's really got his thing going. And maybe that's why we're seeing some of the success. And Gruden, forget about all the country. Gruden is a type of personality that could make sense that it might be a subtle addition by subtraction, not because he's this atrocious, like forget about all that. He's just a big personality. And maybe in that, just a little extra breathing room for Derek. Maybe he's enjoying that, caught a little leadership momentum, and maybe we're seeing that right now.
Yeah,
wow.
I think we are.
You like that,
That was
Justin?
deep. I like that.
Yeah, Dan,
Yeah.
I go that way. I go into those couple of things. That's how I like to make my bets. with
The
psychology.
intangibles.
I'm a big intangible guy. By the
Yeah.
way, Mike White, can I tell you the number one reason I have excitement for tonight? Number one, the
What?
way the other guys are acting.
Yeah.
Before, as you may know, I know a lot of these guys in preseason, random. By the way, for the record, none of this was at the demise or the hurt of Zach. This is
Mhm.
not an or, this is just an and thing. When Zach got hurt, the way guys talked, the way the offense flowed immediately, and the way the guys celebrated with him, like, leadership's a real thing. I'll give you another one. In 2013, Mike White, who knows how old he was then? How old's Mike White now? Let's do some quick
God.
math. Thank you, Jess. It's gonna be 25 or something. Anyway, 2013, what's that? 9 years ago. You're gonna love this one. Dan.
26. He's 26.
26. So when he was 17, he tweeted, "Sorry, Peyton Manning. One day I'm taking the record."
I saw that.
You saw that? So, tonight is the first chance for Linsanity in New York in a long time. And we'll be watching that, of course. When I say we, I mean me. And we will be watching this Sunday. And I think we got our predictions in. And Dan, Justin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks,
thanks
guys.
so much.
Jess,
And
Jess, I
Gary-
need your Jets, Colts, and Giants, Raiders official score predictions because I want them.
okay. Jets, Colts 26, Jets 21. So Jets don't win, but they cover the spread.
Okay.
Raiders, Giants, Raiders 24, Giants 21.
Nice. Good stuff.
And then do you want to boost that one that we talked about? Neither team to 25 plus 180.
What's that?
Do you want to boost neither team to 25 plus
Yeah.
180 on the DK Sportsbook?
Yes, I do.
All right, that's what we're gonna go with.
All right, that's the boost. That's the show. I got to get focused for Jets, Colts. We
And
love
really
you.
quick, Gary.
Yes, I know. Go ahead.
Really quick, listener league card, 1957 Johnny Unitas card. Join the listener league. It's in Gary's Twitter bio.
This
It's
is a big
subject
one.
to change.
Everybody should join this one. This is a Unitas rookie card. Like, Dan, you should join this listener league. Like, I don't know if you're allowed, what the rules are, but like everybody should do this. It's a Unitas rookie card for a free to play. And I think you should.
Very legit. All right, cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Cheers. Bye, everyone.
Age and eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/marketplace for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER in Illinois, New Jersey, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wyoming. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. 1-800-522-4700 in New Hampshire and Colorado. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-888-532-3500 in Virginia. 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, or call and text Tennessee Redline at 1-800-889-9789 in Tennessee. Available to play in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia only. Must be 21 years or older, or 18 plus in New Hampshire and Wyoming. For entertainment purposes only. No results guaranteed. Void where prohibited. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full details. Odds and lines are subject to change.